I was able to fix that issue. It is not the API problem also. I think my API got corrupted, the jar file. So I just downloaded a new one and replaced it with the old one and it was working fine. So we can stick to the same zone or same settings and it will work fine for the hybrid app which we were not able to work with. So I will show you guys how my project jars look like and the API automation. Sorry, the hybrid app automation. No need to change the Java client jar. It should work fine actually. Let me just start everything. Okay. So in my project jars, I just downloaded and added the jar file again. So Java client 6.1.0 version is what I have. Okay. I downloaded and added it again. And then we are going to take our hybrid app. In here, the application path has to be sent like this, not by creating a file app or this. The application path has to be sent like this because otherwise it is not able to identify the application. So let me run my APM server. Okay. Fine. So the hybrid app works. Okay. Everything is similar. I just added the jar file again. So you guys are good with it now? Yeah, so I will share the code files. You guys give it a try and if you face any issue, we will talk about it. Now we were talking about page object model and you both told me you are pretty much okay with it. So I will just show you what I created. Okay, and then I'll just share these files in case you require. You can work with them. Okay. So here I created the page object model for my main screen. So I imported few of the files which we will require, which is basically the by package, by class, and the Android driver. Then I created my by objects. For addition, I'm picking digit 5, 6, plus, equal, and the edit box on which I would like to verify the text. So for these objects, I created the by objects. So how I identify these objects are to be identified using the ID property. Then on each of these objects, the action which I will be performing is what I captured. So I have to click number 1. So driver dot find element digit 5 dot click. Click number 2, driver dot find element digit 6 dot click. Then click plus, click equal, Then validate output. So if driver dot find element text verification get text contains the string I am sending, then the output return should be true. All of that I have taken and created one addition operation in which these are being called. Okay. So in the POM addition, in the before annotation, I have passed my desired capabilities. In the test annotation, I have created an object of this screen and I have called the addition operation with the output to be verified as 11 and I have closed the application. So this is the structure I follow. Again, it is not perfect. It can be improved. You can design it in another manner. But this is one of the ways in which I can design the page object model for a calculator application. Okay. Is this clear? Great. So we are going to have a look at some of the advanced user actions. The first is we are going to look at how do we handle the alert. So what is an alert? What is an alert? A dialog box, okay. Anybody else? A notification on screen, that's right. So alert is basically a notification on screen, and until unless that notification is handled by clicking either on a OK button or a cancel button, we will not be able to do anything else with that. So alert for us is also similar to a object. Okay. So we will be taking our test APK. I'll launch this test APK and we will see how we can work with alert and capture the screens. So let me open my UI Automator. So here is a button which says show alert. So I click on this and I'm going to capture this button object information. So I have a resource ID, right? I can capture that. So alert button, I captured the resource ID. Now I'm going to click on the alert button on my phone and I'm going to capture the screenshot again. So this time it shows you the alert, right? So you see that it is a text view alert and it has got this yes button and a no button. So yes button has got a resource ID button 1 which I'm going to capture. So if I have to handle this alert, what would be my scenario? If I have to handle this button, what would be my scenario? It is pretty simple, right? I have to click on the alert button, then I have to click on the yes button. Correct? That would be my scenario. You both agree with me? Okay, so that's exactly what we are going to do in the script. So let me start the APM server and then I will show you guys the script. So you guys must have seen that in almost all of them we have in the before annotation the desired capabilities work to be done, which is almost common depending upon if it is not an app which is changing. So imagine you testing your application. So these are all configuration settings. Are we on the same page with that? This all information is a configuration setting. So what we want to be configure, we want to look, how do we want our test environment to look? This is all configuration setting. In the actual test, we perform our test action. Now this test action could be more appropriately created by implementing page object model, data parameterization, etc. And in the after class, we are closing the application. So if you implement page object model data parameterization and you take your configuration to a separate file for a driver object, and in these classes you just create your individual test for your scenarios or for your business scenarios, will you be putting up a framework? Can I say then I will be then putting up a framework? Right. So in the desired capability setting, we have passed the path to the application, we have passed the platform version, the device name, the mobile platform, the app package and the app activity name. In the test annotation, we are basically clicking on the show alert button and we are clicking on the yes button. Okay. We are performing clicks here. And in the after class, we are closing the application. Right? So let us run the program. Fine. Worked. Yes, we should ideally also put all this work of before in a separate class for configuration, because if you are going to create a script or a set of scripts for one application, all this is repetitive, right? This all is repetitive. But you will call that class before all your classes execute. Yes, I'm going to call that class before any of my class is going to execute. So you can put your test names in your Excel file and you can read from Excel file and call that file. So let me just so this is a link to the different types of webinars I have done recently. You can get good answers about different frameworks like Cucumber with Selenium and different frameworks on Selenium. So whatever framework is built on Selenium, you can extrapolate it on APM. And I believe that you both are enlightened enough to do that, right? So what I will do is, I will show you guys, so actually I don't cover it generally in the class, but I can cover it for you guys. So I will show you a mini keyword driven framework. Okay, and I will try to explain in that from where you can put your APM, and I'll explain you something about hybrid framework also. Okay, so I will see if I can uh, squeeze in that time within the time available we have, and I will show you guys 2-3 concepts about logs, about a concept called as a reflection, and Excel handling. Okay. So we generally don't cover it in here, but I will try to cover it for you guys. Will that be okay? Is it okay if I show it to you on Selenium? Okay, fine. Just in case if time permits, I'll try to create a mini on APM, but not sure. So I'll show you on APM only, Selenium only. So we have handled alert. Now let us look at a seek bar. So what is a seek bar? Let's first see that, and then we will see how we can work with it. Let's first see Spinner. 1 second. Let me just. So let us see a seek bar usage. So this is a seek bar, okay? Here I can go ahead and change the drag it, get it back. So this is a seek bar. So in the before class, we again set our information. So this is common. As you can see, this is all common. We have to fetch information for an object called as slider. So this slider is recognized by its resource ID property, seek bar 1. Then we have to find out from which location to which location we would like it to be dragged. So we pick the x-axis. We say slider.getLocation.getX. we pick the x-axis endpoint. Okay, so x-axis plus slider dot get size dot get width, then y-axis. Then we use a class called as touch action class that allows us to drag the object from a position. So we press on one position and then we move it to another position, release and perform. So what is a touch action class? Let us first see that. Touch action class is a class in APM which allows you to perform more than one event together. So what touch action does? Touch action is a class. If you know Selenium, you might have heard of the action class. The action class of Selenium is known as the touch action class in APM, which allows us to perform a chain of events. So move, press and move, drag and drop. All this can be done with the help of these touch action class. For example, like this. Okay. So this is an interesting class which helps you automate some advanced mobile actions. So it allows you to work with a chain of events. That's what it allows you to do with. Is this clear? What touch action does? So I will see again, might be API issue. For the earlier API, this works with the integers, but in here now the press option requires the actual object. So I will see that and fix that. But nevertheless, this is how the touch action works. So you are having two events in here if you note. You want to first press on a given point, then you want that slider to move to a given point, and then you want it to be released and action to be performed. So touch action allows us to perform more than a chain of events together. Now let us look at the spinner object. So the spinner object is basically a drop down in Android. So let us see that. So here is a country drop down. If I click on in here, this is my spinner object which will open. I can scroll up, scroll down. I can select a country and that country will come here. Okay. So this is my spinner object. So how do we handle that? So we first fetch the spinner object ID property. We perform a click operation on it. Then this I will explain it to you guys. Before I explain it to you guys, let me show you the objects which are involved in here. See, this is our object which I am talking about. So I will tell you what all object information we require from here. So first we require what type of object it is and what it is containing. So this is do you see this is a list view? So this entire object, the container object which contains all these checked text views, this itself is a list view. So it's a container object which contains all these checked elements, right? So this is my list view and it contains all these checked elements. If I click on any of the checked elements, you can see the text changes, right? So a list view is open which contains all these text elements. And let me just go back, take the screenshot again. So this object is my spinner. Do you see the spinner? Clear? This object is my spinner. So there are three objects which we are going to work with. Spinner on which we want to perform click. Then inside the list view, we want to get a child element for country. So the list view contains a list of checked text views which are the list of countries and we want to select that. Scenario is clear to you guys? Okay. Now what should we do? So in the here, what I was trying to tell you, this should be clear, these two lines, right? They're pretty straightforward. That we identify the spinner object and we perform the click operation on it. Now let us have a look at how do we want to select the country and perform a click operation on it. For that we use another way to identify an element. So we say identify the element by using Android UI Automator property in which you fetch a UI scrollable element. How do you create a UI scrollable element? You put it inside a UI selector and you identify the UI selector using the resource ID. This is the resource ID for the list view. So the list view is effectively a UI scrollable element which is to be identified using UI selector, and on that UI select scrollable you have to get the child by text, which again is a UI selector element which is to be identified by resource ID, this one, and the country being passed as India or whichever, let's say France. So what is UI selector and UI scrollable? Let's see that. So UI scrollable again is the element which provides search support for searching items in scrollable layouts. Okay. So vertical or horizontal scrolls you can create, and inside it contains a UI selector element. The UI selector element allows you to add information in here. So it specifies the elements in the layout hierarchy. Okay, and they are filtered by property like text value, content description, content name, etc. The UI scrollable provides us with the layout in which there will be UI selector elements which allows us to check a particular element we would like to work upon. So we had this spinner object which contained the list view. The list view is defined by the UI scrollable which defines the layout, and it contains these UI selector elements which can be fetched by get child text. Is that making sense? So if you know HTML, you have heard about the drop down element, right? The select element. You guys are aware, right? So the select element has child elements, right? You remember option elements? The option elements can then have different properties using which we can identify the object. So you can select by visible text, select by you can select by visible text, and then you can select by name, etc. So the drop-down objects have a separate class, the select class in Selenium, using which you can work with the drop-down element. Similarly, here you have UI scrollable element, and UI scrollable element will contain UI selector element. So this is the drop-down. So the drop-down is contained inside a spinner. So spinner of Android. So here is the spinners in Android, right? This is what we saw. Fine. Anyone, any questions? Anything which is not clear? Okay. Now another view we are going to take is of scroll and swipe. So scroll and swipe action. So I will show you the scroll action. For that, let me just open the application first. So you guys have seen the contact app on your phones. So if I open a contact app on my phone, I want to search for a particular name. I can simply, what is this? What activity am I doing in here? What is my gesture? The scroll gesture, right? I'm scrolling. Then let us say I want to choose a particular name. I'll click on it and the details using that name will pop up. Correct? So the action which I was doing in here was a scroll action. So again, this is a spinner object. Okay. So the object available is a spinner object. So let us see. First, let us work on it and then we will see and understand the program. So you can see it is scrolling and then it's clicked on an element. So again, how we achieved it? We achieved it by using the Android UI Automator mode of identifying an element which is UI scrollable, which contains the UI selector, which is identified by a resource ID. Inside it, we want to get a child which is identified by its class name and text value. Okay, that's all we did. So again, this information was present inside a spinner. So we were able to use the UI scrollable and UI selector to do our work. So is this clear? Just give me a minute. So with that, we are done with all the different ways in which APM different apps and controls can be automated. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Clear? Okay. So shall I go ahead and talk about some framework elements, like how you can do logging, how you can read information from Excel file or write to an Excel file, and an interesting concept called as reflection in Java. Do you want me to start with that? Yeah, I'll share the files today, Nadia. Use those files. Hopefully you will also not get the error. And I'll share the path to the Java client as well. Just ensure you have that on your project added. Sure. So let's do logging and Excel file handling today. Reflection is a little bit difficult topic. We will talk about it tomorrow and see other things. So whenever we talk about frameworks, okay, you will see that in the webinar also I've explained. You can have a look at that video. Whenever we talk about frameworks, we have to talk about that frameworks are basically a set of interdependent components. Okay, so framework is a set of interdependent components. So there are components which we have to take care of objects, which we generally take care with the help of page object model. Then we have got data. Data, we are either picking up the data from an Excel file or a database or a CSV file from external data sources. Then we have logs. Logs are important for the debugging purpose. If you would have to debug, you would require logs. Then we may require exception handling scenarios. Then we require configuration files. And then we require reports and results. So these are generally the components which a framework should have in place. So object, data, log, exception handling, configuration files, and reports and result, which should be available. So if we have to work on that, how will we do it? So we are going to cover today the concept of logs and Excel file handling. So logs, there are few properties of logging which we should be sticking to. The file should be appended. So logs one generated. If in the next set suit run, it should append in the existing log file. Different users. Not log should be standardized. Okay, logging should be standardized. Different people should not be creating or defining logs in their own way. The log should be standardized. So there is a log4j class available in Java, which is by Apache, which provides us with all of these facilities. So the class name is log4j, which is the logging mechanism available to us by Apache, and we can use it in Java programming language. So let us see how do we do that. You first have to download the log4j Apache jars. So you can download it from here. Go to the download section and download the log4j Apache files. Once these are downloaded, there are specific jars which you have to add on your system, and those jars are so you have to add this one, and this one. These are the three jars which you have to add on your system. Okay. So these are the three jars you have to add to your project jar files. Once these jars are added, after you have downloaded them, we will be creating a class of log4j. So we say import org.apache.log4j.logger, and we create a static variable. Why are we creating a static variable? Because we do not want new files to get generated every time. And where the file will be created, that information is available in my log4j XML. So this is my log4j2 XML inside my resource folder, which contains information where the log will be created. So if I click on in here, it tells me that my log will be created on console. Also, my log will be generated in a file called as logfile.log within the same directory in which I am working. And the level which I want is the debug level for console and file. So there are different types of levels available in the log where each of the level is a method. So info is a method. I pass the message and I say log.info message. Then one is a method. I pick the message and I pass that log.one. So the log will be generated with an info flag or a warn flag or a error flag or a fatal flag or a debug flag. Now depending upon where you are calling this log, accordingly you can call these different methods and pass the string message which you want to pass. Here in the use log4j example, I am picking this file and I am then calling my log4j example info flag, debug flag, warn flag and error flag. So if I run this program, I will get my log file generated. This is my log file.log, right? You see the timestamp, you see the flags, you see the message from a particular class, all being called. Is this clear? If you have any question, let me know. Okay. Now let us talk about Excel file handling. Before that, let us see the Excel file work and then we will see how we can work with it. So whenever you work with an Excel file is basically associated with something called as a workbook. Each workbook in an Excel file has worksheets. Each worksheet has rows and columns, and intersection of these rows and columns become a cell. Okay. So you have an Excel file. Excel file has a workbook. Each workbook has rows and columns. The intersection of rows and columns become a cell. So Excel file is associated with a workbook. Workbook is associated with worksheet. Worksheet has rows, comma, columns, and intersection of a row and a column becomes a cell. So Excel file is associated with a workbook. Workbook is associated with a worksheet, which is associated with rows and column, and intersection of row and columns become a cell. And it is the cell where we write data to or read data from. Okay. So at the end of the day, you have to narrow down to the cell object to write data from or read data to. So Apache provides us with something called as Apache POI, which is a set of jars to work with Microsoft documents. So we have got one for Excel, which we will be working. So Apache POI helps us work with Microsoft documents. Okay, that's what Apache POI does. So here you can download the jar. So the latest release which is available. And once you have downloaded the jar files, which is in the zip folder, you have to extract them. Once you have extracted, you have to basically add all the jar files inside it to your project folder. So all the jars inside the Apache POI. So all the jars here, all the jars in the OXML, and all the jars inside the lib folder, you have to add them except this one. This you do not have to add log4j because you have already added. The rest all the jars you have to add after you have downloaded this package to your project space. And then let us see the program which will help us. We have created a small function file in which we are writing down simple function to get cell data and write to cell data. So we create static variable for workbook, worksheet and cell. For that we have to first import XSF cell, XSF row, XSF sheet and XSF workbook. We have to import all of this. Then we have created the object for workbook, worksheet and cell. Then the first method we do is we set Excel file. So when we are setting Excel file, we pass the path and the sheet name. So we pick the file input from the Excel file. Then we read our Excel workbook. So Excel workbook picks this Excel file. This is the actual input file. This is the physical location of the file from where we are going to read the data from. So we create the workbook object. From the workbook object, we use a method called as getSheet to fetch the sheet name provided. We have to understand that the sheet name should match the sheet name inside the Excel workbook. Then we use a method called the getCellData, which passes row number and column number. We pick that and we fetch our cell. So we say Excel worksheet dot get row number dot get cell column number, and we pick the cell data string value. Then we set cell data. To set the cell data, we pass the data and we pass the row number and column number. So we fetch the row, then we fetch the cell. If in case the cell is null, that means there was never a data written to it, then we create the cell and we set the cell value, else we directly set the cell value. Then we have to save the file. So we write down the program to save the file, where we create a file output stream object and this. Now to use this program, we provide a path. So in our D drive, there is a sheet called as example.xlx workbook. Let me show you guys that. Example write.xls. It has got ID 12 name 12. So example write.xls. In here, in the 0th position, we want to pick some information, and then we want to pick information, or we want to first read cell data from 0, 0 position, and then on the 1, 1 position, we want to write this text, demo of Excel file in the sheet 1. So sheet 1, 0, 0 is ID, 1, 1 is, this is 0, 0, this is 0, 1, this is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. So in the 1, 1, we will replace 1 by demo of Excel file. So let us run this program. Let me just get the path correct. Sorry, it is an Excel file, XLS file. Let me just create one quickly. Okay. So now let us run this. So at 0, 0 we got junk. Now let us see the D drive. Here it's written demo of Excel file, right? It got changed. So we were able to read data from and write data to. Clear to you guys? Okay, so we will stick to logging and Excel file handling for today. Tomorrow we will see the concept of reflection, which will help you if you are trying to create a keyword driven framework, and I will try to show you guys an example of hybrid and a keyword driven framework. The idea, yes, you can call your configuration files, or you can call your, or you can also use it for data parameterization element. You can use it for both of them. So imagine all these configuration, platform version, device name, platform name is all kept as a row headings, and then in below that row you have all these cells with all this data. You can read it, right? Yeah. So you can use Excel as configuration file, as data parameterization. Okay. Any other question? Okay, great. So thank you so much for your time. I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay. Not for tonight. Okay. Great. So I'll see you guys tomorrow where we discuss about these framework. And if there is anything left, we will have a session on next day as well. Else tomorrow we might be able to complete it. Or if you guys have any questions, you want to discuss something, I will schedule a session either day after tomorrow, or if you want some other time as well, we can do that. Okay then. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye. Have a good night. Bye.